All right, let's model this photo that I got online, and I'll share this photo so you guys can use it as your reference photo. We'll change it up a bit. We'll put some wax cover right here so we can add to our modeling techniques, and then we're also going to cover a little bit about camera setup and lighting. Okay, so let's get started. This is basically just drag into the screen like so. Okay, and then let me delete this. What I did with this one is centered it on the screen. So let me just make sure my screencast is working. All right. I'm gonna press N for the sidebar, and I'm on item right there. So you get your XYZ location for the image, which is the empty. I'm gonna click and drag here, and I can put in 0 so that it's centered on the screen. And I'm assuming here that this is aligned perfectly. It's centered. All right. Okay, so let's get our object. I'm gonna go add mesh cylinder. We're gonna be using a modifier here, subdivision surface, to smooth it out. So we can just leave everything as default on the cylinder. All right. And then I will now change my cylinder size to kind of accommodate the size of this one. So I'm going to go to the X-ray mode right here with the cylinder still selected. I'm going to press S to scale, and I'm just going to find an area right there where I think that could be the diameter of that one. And then this one will just simply go to edit mode, hit tab. Okay, I have X-ray mode, so when I drag my point selection, it goes all the way around, right? So I'm just going to use my move tool here so you can see which axis I'm dragging, which is the Z axis. I'm going to go all the way down here. I'm guessing here when they shot this is shot around 200 millimeters, so it's pretty flat right here at the top. So there's not a whole lot of distortion, but you can still see some distortion going on. So we're going to try and kind of replicate it, but we're going to have to kind of approximate where that is. So I probably would lift that up a little bit right there and then scale it. So press S to scale, and it's probably good enough right there for now. Okay. All right, and then we got the top going on here. So I'm gonna press number 3 or go to face mode, select the face on top right here. Go back to numpad 1, so I'm in the front. So I'm gonna do some extrusion here. So I'm gonna extrude it like so. Then press S. And if that needs more curvature, we can add a ring in there later. So for now, let's kind of get the basic shape. So right here, one more. Extrude E, and then S. All right, then extrude again, probably right there. Press S. Okay, definitely needs something in there later on. So let's move up. Press E. Right there, I'm going to zoom in. Press E to extrude, then scale. Press E to extrude. Press E to extrude, and then S to scale. All right, so we're gonna pretend later on that there's a wax covering right here. So we'll probably do a cut right here. So I'm gonna do edge loop cut, sorry. This one right here. Okay, Command R or Control R is the keyboard shortcut. So I'm gonna do Control R right now, and then it's gonna create a cut right here. So I'm gonna left click to confirm and then move up. So I probably want the wax around here. Okay, then we'll deal with that when we need it. Okay, so now let's take a look at our object right here. Turn off my visibility on that one. So there it is. It's not quite the same yet. Very faceted, jaggy. Okay, we're going to need to add some modification. So I'm going to use the loop cut tool here. I'm in edit mode with the things, our wine bottle selected. So I'm going to do a loop cut right here. So Control R. Okay, so whenever you position your cursor, it's If you hit a horizontal edge, it'll give you a vertical cut. If you hit a vertical cut or hover on top of a vertical edge, you get a horizontal cut right here. So I'm going to position it right there, left click to confirm it, and then you're allowed to kind of move it up and down along the edge. So right there's where I want it, and then press S to kind of get that shape right there. All right. Maybe right here, Control R. Just leave it at the center, then press S to kind of get that curvature. Maybe one more here. All right. So now there's no label on this one, so we should be fine with that. Then right here, I'm going to do a cut. Goes to the bottom. Okay. Oh, sorry. Let me escape that so you could see it, because it'll drop it in the center. And we'll drop it really close to the ground right there. Okay. And then I'm going to select all these edges right here. So if I click Alt, hold down Alt or Option on a Mac, and then click it, it does it all the way around selection right there. Okay. And if I go back to my numpad one to the front, I can press S and then kind of simulating that one right there. Okay, so to really smooth this out, we're going to use a modifier. Okay. And we're going to add extra cuts where we need them to kind of keep the shape, because subdivision surface modifier is it will add a lot of segments to this, but it's equal distribution. So meaning the way it will smooth this segment, this portion right here would be the same as this one, where there's hardly any polygons on this or faces. Okay, so I'm going to go to my modifier tab right here, which is the wrench. While the object's still selected, I'm going to click Add Modifier, Subdivision Surface. By default, you get 1, 2. Basically, it will render in a complexity of 2, and then you're watching it as viewport level 1. So you want to watch it 2 by 2. What you see is what you get, basically, so you can preview it. So let's take a look. Let's hide the empty. Okay. So there it is. This is, I'm going to turn it off temporarily. So this is what it looks like without the subdivision surface modifier. I'm going to shade smooth it. Okay. And let's go over here so we can kind of see what it looks like, right? And when I turn on the modifier, there it is, kind of smooths it out. But you lose some of those detailed sections right there, because it's not previewing correctly. Because there's not enough cuts right there. So I'm going to go back to edit mode here. Okay, it's looking not so bad. Let's look at the bottom. Probably issues right here. Here you can tell that we don't have enough polygons here, so it's trying to pull this away and we're losing the shape. So we're just going to add those Control R or loop cuts. Okay, so I'm going to do Control R right here, and the selection should, oh, let me zoom out a little bit more, sorry, so you can see it. Okay, Control R. There it is, and I drag this down so you can see it's starting to conform and fix the shape. Alright, you see it in there? Okay, and then right here it's not very stable at the bottom for this class. If we actually put this down, it will kind of rock left and right or forward and back. So I'm going to add another loop cut, probably down here in the middle. So I'm going to do Control R. Okay, and then maybe lower that down a bit, and then we get a little bit more of a stable base. Okay, and then maybe I'll click this line to select the whole thing again right there, and then maybe scale this inwards a little bit to round that up better. Okay, so when we look at the bottom right now, it's just kind of like this blank space right here. So it's still not going to give it you a super flat look. It'll still give you a little bit of curve right there. So what we'll do here at the bottom is add another section of polygons here, but instead of extruding and scaling, we're just going to press I for inset polygon. Okay, so press I and then drag the mouse, and then you get like a section like so. And that should be enough to kind of stable the bottom. So if I hit tab again to go to object mode, you'll see it right there. Okay, so now let's take a look where we're kind of not getting the shape where we need it. Like right here, probably we need to reinforce another Control R right here. Okay, loop cut, and bring it down closer here so that we get that kind of straight line right here. So Control R. I'm going to drag it probably right there, should be enough. Okay, so you can see right here it controlled that curvature. Okay, and probably one more here because it's losing its shape right here. So I'm going to do Control R. Oh, let me, sorry, keep doing it. Move it up here a bit so you can see where that cut is coming from. It's quite tall, so here we go. Control R and push it close. Don't flush it all the way like that. Just get it as close to that one. And then when you look at the shape, okay, so it's kind of keeping it right there. Okay, now let's kind of take a look. All right, so we're seeing this in a way bump right here because it's not let's see, let me click undo first. Let me kind of get rid of that line, and then let's see if we're seeing any of that bump. I'm sorry. Okay, let's take a look. It's still kind of there. Most likely it's from this cut right here. So let's kind of fix that because I added that cut right here, and then it might not like the way it was kind of positioned. Okay, so let me add that cut first. Control R. Let's kind of bring it over there, close to it. Okay, and then let's take a look at getting rid of this one that we added before. So I'm going to click Alt, click it, selects all the way around. I'm going to press X to delete that, but I don't want to delete it because if I just delete edges, it will leave some points. So what you want here is dissolve the edge. Okay, and it's probably not bad. Might need to do something with how that thing is actually shown right there. So we might not even see any of that once we start adding the textures and whatnot. I mean shading. Okay, so I'm guessing right here, maybe select this one and then just kind of scale it in a little bit. All right, kind of get rid of that kind of artifacting. Okay, maybe this one also. Let's kind of scale that down a bit. All right, I don't want to stray too far away from the original shape. Probably down here and then scale it. All right, so I think that's keeping the shape. Okay, so now let's take a look at kind of converting this first into this object right here, and we're going to simplify it a bit, right? So we're just going to do a shader here that would work with this one, not necessarily following the translucency because we're doing Eevee here. Yeah, so I'm gonna make sure here we're seeing the engine on Eevee, and turn on ambient occlusion and space screen reflection. Make sure those things are on right there. And what else? On our shadow right here, we're gonna click on high bit depth right there, just so that we get some nice contact shadows. Okay, so let's now create our background, right? So I'm gonna hide the empty. I'm gonna create a new object. Okay, so Shift A, Mesh Plane. So that's just a plane right there, and I'm gonna press number 1 to go to the front. Go to my move tool here so you can see which axis I'm dragging, which is the blue Z axis. Alright, so I'm gonna go to the bottom right there. I'm gonna press dot to kind of zoom in, and we want to make sure that the bottle is not floating. So we want to make sure we have contact. We also don't want to dip, right? So you might want to zoom in when you do that. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out right here, and we're going to create this one. So usually in product photography, you'll see this massive cyclorama, okay, which is kind of like a background that kind of drapes right here. But the key to giving it that look, that infinity look right here, you don't see any. Of course, you can go to Photoshop and clean that, but you want to make sure that's done in photography correctly. Is that you have this really soft corner. Okay, so let me hide that empty. So if I go here, and I would just want to make sure I'm selecting the back right here. So I'm going to go to edge number 2, that edge right there. Okay, I'm going to press number 3 right here. So if I click E to extrude it, it'll just go anywhere like so. But it's already extruded here. So if I right click right now, it cancels that movement, but there's still an extrusion there. I still have the move tool on, so if I move this up on the z-axis, or I could have just pressed E and then Z, it's automatically assuming that the movement is next. So it created that kind of background right there. So I'm going to move this up a little bit. Okay. So now this is the part where we need to make sure it's smooth. So that's pretty easy. As long as you select this, you simply right click and bevel the edge, and then you drag your mouse. It creates this cyclorama infinity corner right here. It's not working yet because there's only one segment. So if we increase our segments, okay, that should be plenty right there. And then also I'm going to go to object mode and then right click. You still see how faceted it looks like? I'm going to right click and then shade smooth. That should give us that infinity look. So if I go to the front right here, you're not seeing any of that cut. Okay. So next is let's set up our camera. So right now there's the default camera that Blender's using. So if I press 0 on the numpad, or when you go to your viewpoint, you can change to a camera right there, numpad 0. This is what the camera is looking at, okay? And you don't want to take photos on the default one because this is pretty bad composition right here. So let's control the camera. So if I move my mouse right now, it just throws me off. It goes back to the working camera, not the recording camera. Okay. So if you want to control your camera using the working camera technique, well, you middle click drag to orbit the camera, shift middle click drag to pan, and then scroll your mouse, zoom, move the dolly forward and back. You need to lock the camera control, right? You could also do it the classic way where, if you press 0, that's what the camera's looking at. And you can actually physically move this camera and position it. But it's much intuitive when you're setting your camera, like how you're setting your working camera. You're familiar with it. All right. So in order to lock this camera control so it doesn't always jump out, okay, we go to our sidebar right here. Keyboard shortcut is N. Okay, and then you go to View, and then there it is. It says Lock Camera to View. Once I click that and I press 0 to look at that camera, now when I middle click drag and do all that stuff, it's doing its thing. All right, so by default your camera is set to HD resolution, 16:9 aspect ratio. So our photo right here, it's a little bit more on the reverse side. It's more on the portrait aspect ratio, right? So let's kind of copy that, right? So I turn on back my empty by clicking that eye icon, right? I have the camera selected. I'm going to go to the camera tab setting right here. So I'm going to click that. Okay. Let's kind of first follow the aspect ratio. So let me go to my camera here. All right. And on Eevee, and then below that, you see this kind of like a printer output icon. All right, it's our resolution. So this thing needs to be less wide. So I'm gonna change my 1920 here and drag it a little bit up right there, and then my y-axis to kind of reverse the number basically. All right, so let me kind of lower this a little bit and then increase that. Okay, and lower this one. Let's just kind of reverse it. So this is 1080 and then 1920. I don't want to go like super high res on that one. All right, so there's that. Okay, so as you can see right here, our aspect ratio is now standing simply by reversing the numbers. Okay, so the next thing is we want to make sure, so now I can hide this one. So you can see if I zoom in right here, it's quite distorted, a lot of curving at the top and the bottom. So that means our camera focal length, by default, it's 50. So for product photography, you want to get a control distortion and whatnot, usually use a higher focal length. So I'm going to change this to 50 to 200 millimeter. And we're way too close, of course, and then we're going to back away right here. But look at the difference now. Okay, we're seeing the bottle now. Almost flat at the ground, a little bit of distortion on the top, but very similar to this shot right here. Flat at the bottom, a little bit of distortion on the top right there. Okay, so we now kind of basically created this one. as that. So the problem here is like, well, once you centered your camera and whatnot, um, and when you're locked to this one, if you rotate your camera like that, you ruin your composition. Okay, and you can't kind of like undo that because it's an actual camera position movement. Okay, so once you're pretty happy with this setup right here, you want to uncheck that so that next time you go like this, it kicks you out of the camera view and you're back to the working view. When you press numpad 0, you're back to that. Okay, so now we're seeing this how we want to record it. Okay, maybe a little bit of headroom, but let's kind of keep it like this for now. Okay, so next is let's go to our preview. So this is what it kind of looks like if we're just previewing material. But this one right here, this is reality. This is what we really see what this thing is. All right, so let's start selecting the object right here, and then we can add some shader to it. Right, so I'm going to go to my shader tab, click new, and then we're simply going to give this one like a black color, and we're going to make it super shiny. All right, here we go. Okay, so next is that we're gonna have to add a light right here and get rid of the light that we're using right here. Okay, so we're gonna keep that so that we can see what's happening in render mode right here. So I'm gonna go to numpad 1, so it goes to the front, and I'm gonna add an area light. An area light is a soft light. Think of those photography box light, right? Some of them are like octagonal shapes, some are rectangle. Whole point of that is what is the reflection of the light shapes that you want. So it's a catch light. Usually models, I mean portrait photography, they factor in what's the catch light on the model's eye. Okay, so for our sake, those kind of looks like from the original photo, they look like just long strips. Okay, so let's kind of copy that. Right, so let me hide the empty, which is the image. So I'm gonna click Shift A, or you can go to add right here. It's the same thing. I'm going to go to light, and then area light's what we want. Okay, by default your area light's going to be pointing down, and it's this square shape. Okay, so let's kind of position it the way we need it. So I'm going to go back to the front viewport here. I'm going to press rotate, which is R, but I'm going to hold down control so that when I rotate this, it snaps to 5-degree increment, so I can definitely just eyeball it and then make a 45-degree rotation, so it's aiming this way, kind of like that's the aim right there. Right, so let's take a look. Let's go back to camera view right here, press 0. So if I pull this back a little bit, you can already see it's starting to give us that reflection. Okay, very similar to the photo. So I'm just going to move it just slightly out of the frame of our recording frame. Right, and then we're going to increase the size of this. I'm just going to press S to increase it. It's losing its power because it's being spread out. Okay, there it is. And then I'm going to do SY, which is the green, to kind of make it a little bit slimmer. Okay, and then move it a little bit up front right here, so the whatever reflection it's giving, it's going to be a little bit more up front. So I'm going to go back to the camera mode, which is 0 right there. By default, it doesn't have any contact shadow. Let's turn that thing on. Let's also get rid of this light now. Okay, the original light that when you first start Blender. Okay, we can delete that. So this is what we're actually seeing. However, as you can see here, we're slightly seeing some extra lights as if there's still light going on, right? So let's get rid of that, right? So go to the world tab. Okay, it's this guy right here. So let me click any object here so you can see the difference. That's the shader tab, and that's the world tab. By default, the color or the world has an ambient light based on this. Okay, if I bring this all the way up, it's like a dreamy light. But if I bring that all the way down, so none of the world is contributing to this light, only what we have actually positioned. So it's this light right here. Okay, so if I select that area light right there, go to the light tab and then increase the wattage. So let's give it some power, 500 watts. All right, that might be too much, all right, but that's that's a good working light condition at this point. Okay, and we have the contact shadow, and the difference is it actually adds some contact shadow there, and you can increase the distance And you can set all sorts of stuff, but let's leave that as default for now. Okay, kind of dramatic lighting. We're affecting the backdrop a little bit. So if I move this back a little bit, as you can see, the frame now, we get this natural kind of feathering. All right. And then if I move this up a little bit or down, it does affect all of that stuff. So we want it on the ground, kind of like so. Let me make this, well, it's kind of wide enough. So let me go back to the light and let's set up the other light. So I'm going to press number 7 to go to the top. Okay. There's our light. Let me go to wireframe mode so you can see exactly what I'm doing. So what I'll do here is I'm just going to do Control Shift D to duplicate this light. The reason why we duplicate is you keep all the settings the same. I move it over here. It's pointed over there, so I will rotate this. Press R, hold down Control until it faces the other way, and just kind of simply match the location on this one on the opposite side. Press 0. Let's go back to the 4th circle right there. All right, so there's our lighting right there. Might be a little too strong, so I'm gonna go here with maybe 400 watts and lower this so we kind of have a little bit of contrast. So 200 watts. Okay, so it's strong on this one, slightly low on this. All right, and we're still getting some shadow on this one, maybe because we're way too close, or we need one more light at the top that just kind of controls the lighting here. So I'm just going to select the same light. This one is the 200 watt one. Let me go to the front viewport. Okay, go to the wireframe so you could see. I'm going to duplicate that again. Okay, and then I'm going to rotate it, hold down Control so it's pointing down like so. Then I'm going to bring that up, pressing G right here. So let's take a look what that did. All right, let's press 0 so that the camera is factored in. All right, so we're still getting some cuts right there on that shadow. So I'm going to kind of rotate this and then spread this out, scale it SY so that it's more of a square spread, and then I'm going to scale it so whatever light distribution it's doing, it's a little bit more spread out, right? So I'm going to go to the side viewport here. I'm going to rotate it a little bit so it's aimed at the background as well, and we're getting some rim lighting on it a little bit. Okay, because it's still, we're not done with this one part here. It's still quite strong. All right, so this is the light. So let's see, rotate it a bit, aim it like so, and press 0. Let's see if it does affect. Okay, our lighting right there. So I'm also going to do a test render right here, render image. Let's take a look. Okay, so we're still kind of getting that cut. We might need to fix the background a little bit, like move it further back or increase the cyclorama. All right, so let's actually try that. Okay, I'm going to hit tab right here, and I'm just going to delete all this part. So press number 3, select this polygon here, and then I'm going to do Control plus on the numpad to increase my selection all the way to that section right there, and then I'm going to press X, delete faces, so we're back to the way it was. Number 2, for edge mode, select this, press E to extrude, right click to cancel the movement, and just grab this. We go back here, select this edge, right click and bevel. This time we're gonna spread it out a little bit more like so. Okay, and it's still the same number of segments. It kind of remembers it. So let's take a look here. All right, we're actually getting better shadow. There's hardly any cut in there. However, I do want to make sure that it's a little further back, just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go to object mode or hit tab. I'm going to move this entire background just back a little bit, just a little bit right there. Okay, so and you can extend this. If, let's say this is exposing on the camera, like the front, you can sorry, hit tab, go to edit mode, select this edge right here, and you can move this up like a little bit more. So when you go to object mode, you can push that back a little bit more. Keep in mind you're losing light on that one, but this one can kind of move it back a little bit. Let's go here. All right, so we're not seeing that cut anymore. We're seeing some artifacting, most likely on our light right here. That's what's kind of affecting that. All right, because if we push it down here, then we get that cut. So if we lifted this up, you know, pushing this back or front or making it even wider, I doubt that will make any difference on the highlight here too much because this is a really narrow kind of bottle. So let me increase this one. All right, it kind of elongated down a bit. But if we move this a little forward, then that just move that highlight a little bit forward, but we don't want it kind of casting stuff in the back. All right, so maybe that one right there, so it's not too kind of uniform in the lighting. Okay, I think that will work. Let's scale this one as well. Oh, I meant to do the Y. Move that forward a bit. Oh, I keep missing the arrow. There we go. Okay, press 0. All right, maybe that would work right there. Okay, so there's our shot. Let's do a render image. It should look fairly the same. Okay, and we just need to add that wax on top, right? So we're going to go modeling right now. So I will select the bottle, and then I'm going to press the forward slash. It's the one underneath the question mark, and it just goes isolate this on its own, right? So we're going to go modeling. So we're going to go to solid mode, number 1. So we're on numpad 1. Okay, and then we're going to extract that part. So I'm going to hit tab right here. Okay, and what we'll do here is we're going to get this section right here and then separate it um, the from the bottle. All right, so I'm going to go to the top right here, face mode. It's going to select the top one right there, so the top is selected. Okay, I'm going to increase my selection by doing this control and then the plus sign on the numpad. Okay, it's one way to do it. Another way to select like that is you go to face mode, make sure your x-ray mode is selected, and then simply click and drag like so. And then you, oops, sorry, right there, and then you get this selection right here. So that's the same thing, right? Oh, make sure your x-ray mode is on. I was just talking about that, but there we go. So everything is selected. All right. So what we want with this is to separate it from the bottle. All right. So press P as in Popeye to separate. So we want to separate the selection. So when we do that, this is now a separate object. So we're still in edit mode with the bottle still selected, right? So I'm going to click tab here to get out. So select the bottle right here. Go to point mode, select all this top one, make sure you're in x-ray mode, so you select everything on top. And I'm simply going to move this up a little bit so that, you know, it doesn't end right there. We're going to go to object mode, select this one. This is supposed to be the wax, right? I'm going to press S, kind of scale it, but however, it's scaling in its original pivot point, which is the bottom. So let's change that a little bit. We want to scale this where it's at. So while this object is selected, we go to object, we go to set origin to geometry. So you can kind of center it right here. So when I press S, it kind of made it a little bit bigger than the bottle. We just want a little bit, as if you dip this thing in wax, right? So that's the kind of whole point of it. All right, so here, what we're going to do is first, let's give this a color. Okay, let's go back to this preview right here because we turn off all the lights, right? I'm going to click here, and then this used to be the old material, right? So I'm just going to click minus on that, give it a new material, all right? And mostly it's kind of like dark red for those wax. There we go. And probably make it a little glossy. All right, so right there. So we got that one, and then we kind of need to make it looking waxy right here, right? And it hand-edited the subdivision surface, so we don't have to worry about kind of not giving it that look for it. Okay, so now let's kind of go here. I mean, X-ray mode also. So whatever I click here up front, the back also gets selected. So we just kind of make it kind of droop a little bit. All right, so I'm just going to go like this so that it looks like, you know, it got the wax kind of just kind of droop a little bit like so. All right, that should be good enough right there. It was way too straight right here, so we'll kind of do the same thing. And you can design this however you want. And since we're seeing the front, you know, the back, it's how it's also showing. All right, so I'm gonna do a Control R right here and bring this down a little bit like so. So what we can do with this is that we can move some of this uh, area uh, or this one right here, kind of, so you can have a little bit more of it kind of going inside, or select. I'm gonna do another Control R right here, and we can select this part right here. So if I click Option or Alt click, you can scale this. It's so that you know it kind of goes out a little bit like so. All right, and then don't worry about the thickness right here because that's just another modifier we can add. Is solidify. It just gives it a thickness, right? So looking very waxy already. Okay, right there. And you can increase that thickness going in or out. Okay, so I think with that setup, it's probably good right there. I put 0.9. Another thing we can do is we can probably give it a subsurface value right here. Okay, so it's making it kind of translucent a little bit. Okay, so if I click drag the base color here to the subsurface color and then just give it that value. Okay, so it's making a little bit translucent, more waxy in a way. Okay, especially the corners right there. And we got to make sure we're seeing that. So let me go back to Eevee right here. Subsurface scattering. Okay, should be on. All right, so just kind of give it a little bit of that look. Let's go back here and go to the front, and we can manipulate some more of these points, and just so it looks a little bit uneven. Same thing here, because it looks too perfect right here. So, but we're not kind of getting the shape right there. Let's add another Control R or Edge Loop Cut, and then kind of move it here a little bit. All right, and then maybe here in the center, add one, and then scale it up so it goes like that a little bit. And then I can grab points right here while in X-ray mode and just kind of move those a little bit, just so that we're adding a little bit of imperfection to this. So, okay, kind of droop that a little bit and move this one. So we're kind of adding some unevenness to the wax right here. And let's take care of the top. It's looking or all this thing kind of converging to that one. So let's go number 3, select the top one. I'm going to press I. So we get more of a surface right there where we can control those a little bit. I'm going to go to the front here and go here, and then let's add selection here. I'll kind of move that up. So again, so it's not too even. All right. And let's see. Well, that might be enough right there. Okay. Maybe too much movement here. So let me kind of soften this a bit. All right. Just so that it's not too okay. There we go. So let's press 0. With this thing selected, and that one, press / to bring everything back. And let's take a look. All right, there it is. So there's plenty of ways to kind of manipulate it some more. But for kind of matching that look and then adding this one, I think this should be plenty to practice with, you know. So again, I'm going to zoom out here and just kind of show you the setup. So we have two kind of area lights just pointing at the bottle, creating those highlights. And then we have this massive one right here with a lower wattage, maybe, or I scaled it so it's kind of spread out. It's our cyclorama. All right, we got rid of the original light. We kept the same camera, but its focal length is 200 right there to kind of match the distortion on the photo. All right, so let me go back to what it looks like. Render, render image, and then here's our final product. And this is all real time, folks. All right, so this is just using Eevee. Of course, if you switch that to cycle, you get more realistic look. But you know, let me see our sampling. 128 just for this quick demo here. Let's see. And as you can see, it's doing its bucket rendering right here, and it's just versus Eevee should be close enough because it's such a simplistic lighting, and we didn't factor in making it transparent. So Eevee definitely will still lose out to cycles when it comes to realistic glass look. But for something just like glass shiny surface look like what we're using here, it should be fairly close. All right, a little bit cleaner on the, you know, I didn't add any post-processing stuff. All right, so that's the realistic lighting, which is the real cycles render, and then Eevee, of course. I didn't go side by side, but it should be fairly close looking. All right, so and that concludes our demo. I will include the photo as a Google Map link in the description so you can follow along. Thanks for watching.